Christina, I'm going to ask give us their answer to a trivia question.
Yeah.
So today's trivia question asks, because it's a kind of a dreary January day, our trivia question asks in inches, how much snow fell during the snowiest month on record in Des Moines? 1 month. What's the snowiest month on record in Des Moines? So put your answer in the chat. We'll see how many correct answers we get. And we'll get started in just a moment, folks. It's great to see everyone.
Okay, everybody. Okay, everyone, we are recording. I just got the live stream going, so you can find that recording instantly on IFU's Facebook page, but you can find the recording of our discussion with Ron on YouTube within the next couple of hours. After our discussion, drop your answers in the chat and be sure to put your questions in the Q&A box as we move through our talk so Aaron does not miss them. They get lost in the chat. And we've got a 45 inches, Aaron, so you go ahead and get us started.
Okay, I will. Well, welcome everyone. This is the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn series, and we are so grateful today because we're going to have a wonderful discussion with Ron Rosmann, longtime Iowa farmer, policy advocate, and founding board member of Practical Farmers of Iowa. And we'll be talking about his newly released book, A Practical Farmer's Journey, the history of community stewardship and resilience. So welcome, Ron. It's great to have you here. We're going to do a couple Farmers Union announcements, but first we wanted to say thank you for being here and welcome. It's good to have you.
Oh, thank you very much, Aaron.
So
It's
a couple of Farmers Union announcements before we go any further. We are very excited. Iowa Farmers Union Day on the Hill is taking place February 3rd from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and we start at the State Geological Society building, and then we go to the Iowa Capitol. So sign up today. There's a link in the chat for Iowa Farmers Union Day on the Hill in Des Moines at the state legislature, February 3rd. We're looking forward to it. We've got a lot of great work to do this session at the Iowa legislature. I also want to remind people that the National Farmers Union Convention is taking place in New Orleans, March 7th through 9th. That is the annual meeting of the National Farmers Union. We learn from one another, we gather with one another, and we adopt the National Farmers Union policy, and we elect the leadership of the National Farmers Union. We've got a great Iowa contingent going to New Orleans. If you'd like to join us there, please check out the chat and let us know. We're looking forward to that. So today's trivia question asked, in inches, how much snow fell during the snowiest month on record in Des Moines? And I'm trying to see, we got a few guesses in there. Ron, did you, now don't cheat. Did you see the answer already, or do you have a good guess for
no,
us?
no. I was too busy trying to figure out what I'm going to do here today. I didn't even guess.
The trivia answer is in January of 1886.
Wow.
That was the snowiest month on record for at Des Moines, a total of 37 inches in 1 month in Des Moines. How they handled all that snow back then, it's a mystery to me. Um, so I am grateful, even in the worst, snowiest days here on the farm, that we have a few resources to handle it all. That's the answer to our trivia question 37. So before we go any further, though, let's jump into our conversation today. Again, we are so grateful to be joined by Ron Rosmann, longtime Iowa farmer, policy advocate, and founding board member of Practical Farmers of Iowa. His newly released book, A Practical Farmer's Journey, A History of Community Stewardship and Resilience, has just been released. He reflects on a lifetime of farming in Iowa, growing up in a rural community and navigating the farm crisis, transitioning his family's operation to certified organic production, and he examines the future of food, farming, and rural communities. It does a fantastic job of weaving together his personal experiences, his practical insight, and it offers a blueprint for resilient agriculture, and it addresses farm policy, climate change, stewardship of land and water, and the real social fabric of rural America. Ron and his wife Maria, along with with two of their sons and families, operate Rosmann Family Farms, a 700-acre certified organic crop and livestock farm in west central Iowa. Welcome, Ron. We are so grateful you're with us today.
Oh, thank you, Aaron. Um, yeah, this was a lifelong dream of mine to write this book. It took me 10 years to get the job done. Uh, when all was said and done, it's very interesting. It took about almost 9 months to find a publisher. I think I tried 9 or 10 different ones, but I found a very good one called Hamilton Books, which is an academic press, and they just got bought out by one of the five biggest in the world called Bloomsbury, which is headquartered in London, but also is in New York City and so forth. So anyway, I'm really happy about that. Now, the book really in 1982 was when my journey to discovering, hey, there's a better way to farm. I jumped off the train, so to speak, and that was through initially through Dick Thompson at Boone, and then that one thing led to another, and Practical Farmers of Iowa officially started in 1986, and I was a founding board member and second president. So, but you really don't find out about much about that until chapter 10. There's 14 chapters in this book, and interestingly enough, it doesn't start uh, uh, with my growing up. Even it goes back and starts on the Missouri River. And Christina or Aaron, can you get slide number 9 up there, maybe?
Sure, let's pull that up, Ron. And okay, here
Yeah,
we are.
uh, we're just. It starts on the Missouri River. Actually, the book does, and I didn't realize. Well, we're only 45 miles east of the Missouri River as the crow flies. Well, I knew that Lewis and Clark, uh, journeyed and had their journey of discovery and kept wonderful notes about all this. And I knew there was a parley with the Native American tribes, but I didn't know exactly where it took place. Well, this obelisk in the center that you can see, let's move on to the next one.
Mhm.
There's our grandson Xavier. This summer, he and I visited it again. That was the first time he saw it, but that is about within 1,500 feet, they claim, of where the very first meeting between the Missouri and uh, 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 the Odos took place with Lewis and Clark. And then let's move on to the next one. Out of that, in the year, of course, that was 1804, I think, or three, one of those. In 1817, the very first military fort west of the Missouri River was developed at that site, which today is Fort Calhoun, Nebraska. But back then it was Fort Atkinson. I see it started in 1820, but it only lasted 7 years because there was really no skirmishes with Native Americans. But so well, that's the end of the slides. The reason I wanted to do this is I wanted to give some history to, how we started as a country. Iowa is a state full of immigrants. We're a nation of immigrants. Uh, in the book, I talk about in 1840, there was 40,000 residents in Iowa. 40 years later, by 1880, there were 1.2 million. And where did they come from? They came first from Ireland because of the famine. But then after the Civil War is when the great influx really started, and our little hometown of Westphalia, Iowa started in 1872. And we're on the National Register of Historic Places now. And I also was in charge of developing our uh, uh, St. Boniface Heritage Center, which we had our grand opening here in December, because the older I have gotten, the more interested I've become in the history of really what this book talks about are three promises, and it's labeled as that, three sections. The beginning of the promise, that when towns like Westphalia started all over Iowa and the Midwest, were they worried about that someday this would all be threatened by changes in technology and the industrialization of agriculture? No, what they saw was the beginning of an opportunity to buy some land and have a better life than what they had in Europe. You know,
Mhm.
prior
Mhm.
to World War One and all the wars and contention for whose land is this, was going on. Uh, well, I could talk all day about this, but for instance, in our own family, we were listed as coming from Austria. Well, it turns out my great grandpa actually was in the Hungarian uh, military, but then the Rosmanns actually came from what is today Slovenia.
Oh,
So
okay.
there was so much fluidity in where people were coming from because of the warring factions. So, but the beginning of the promise was a new town, a new community, new families, and the ability to practice their religion, their faith without, uh, harm. And sure. So uh, I was going to read the very beginning, an excerpt,
Sure.
because it starts on the Missouri. So the journey begins. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a canoe paddling up the Missouri River near present day Council Bluffs. The year is 1714. You may be the first white man on this stretch of the Missouri. What do you see? You see a river so wide and meandering that it may be hard to find the main channel at times. It is late summer. You see far off into the distance stands of tall grass prairie, 8 feet high in places. You could not have envisioned that more than 300 years later, people would see another sea of grass, only this time it would be 8 foot tall corn plants. And one particular animal would have caught their attention, and that's the beaver, the lowly beaver. The lowly beaver is responsible for the settlement of much of the Midwest and the Great Plains
Hmm.
because Europeans thought they had to wear its fur on top of their head. Starting in the 1600s, with the French, with Montreal as their base and the Hudson Bay Company,
Mhm.
and the British too, to some extent. The Spanish, not so much, but those were the three great empires trying to figure out who was going to get who in this country for land. So that's really how much of the Midwest was initially uh, settled by the early French, especially, but also the British into as far east as Des Moines, Iowa. Uh,
Okay. So that's
so
the, so that's the beginning of the promise.
yes,
And that takes you and you take us through that all the way up uh, until uh, until the mid late 20th century.
yes, and I would like to that I am calling the breaking of the promise, and that coincides with the time I started farming
Okay.
in 1973. Here, I'm going to read this part from chapter 7.
Okay. Very good.
It has been over 50 years since I graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in biology. Uh, I think it has helped me to become a better farmer. Today, the exciting new discoveries in soil quality requires new discipline and understanding and learning how to maintain and enhance it. The existential challenges of climate change require even more rigorous thought and research and discovery. It will require all the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge we can muster, and then some. However, 50 years ago in 1973, my graduate school became the world of agriculture and the rural community and the surroundings into which I settled. And so in chapter 8, I start describing in detail what was starting to happen. And that was uh, a changing landscape and a changed person.
Mm.
I came back a much different person in 1973 than I was when I left in the fall of 1968. What I soon discovered was that although I had changed a great deal, farming and rural culture were changing even more. The social fabric of rural America, consisting at that time of security, safety, and quite a bit of isolation, was beginning to unravel. And that was quite evident in my little community of Westphalia, Iowa. And of
Mm.
course, that was in the early 70s when Earl, our famous Secretary of Agriculture, Earl Butz, coined two phrases that really set the stage for what has happened ever since. And that
Mm.
is farmers have to plant fence row to fence row. And the other one was get big or get out.
Mm.
And so that really started when I started farming in 1973. Uh, we were going to export our way into never ending agricultural prosperity. Well, it quite didn't quite turn out that way, of course, did it?
No.
And so, it led to in the early 80s, the 1980s, the farm crisis years, which affected our family a great deal.
Yeah.
It was in 83. That's when I decided to quit using chemicals because for one reason was I didn't think I could afford them. I knew how to cultivate, but I didn't know some of the new ways to do a better job of controlling weeds. And that led to the Practical Farmers of Iowa. And so in chapter 7, 8, 9, and 10 is kind of chapter 10 especially is where I get very detailed about what we did on our farm, the on-farm research model that PFI embraced, and how that is still the core mission and core part of PFI is doing on-farm research, so farmers can learn from one another and what works and what doesn't work.
And that is that where you lead to from the breaking of the promise to what comes next?
Yes, and that is because the reality is the corporatization of agriculture has and government farm policy fueled by that, and very much so, but also new technologies of better hybridization of
Right.
corn, and then after World War II, I talk a lot about how anhydrous ammonia through the Haber-Bosch process, how that was developed after World War II from because of learning how to make bombs and how fertilizer and chemicals uh, uh, to control weeds really starts in World War II and even earlier than that. So
Sure.
all that has led to larger farms because of technology and because of forces beyond farmers' control.
Sure.
So
along with policy, all those things led to that breaking of the promise. And your
yes,
decision and is then and your work since then is to go beyond the breaking of the promise.
yes, the last two chapters talk about what kind of food and agriculture are we going to have in the future.
Hmm.
And I'm going to read something there, and maybe then we're going to have to pretty much close. Uh, I should say one of the main things is local and regional food and farming systems.
Mm-hmm.
And numerous times I say in the book, no, we do not need less farmers around the world. We need more farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I try to give a valid rationale why that should be the case. So here I am reading from the book. To summarize, I foresee a number of critical steps and changes in behaviors and attitudes that are needed if we are to make more meaningful changes in agriculture. This change is not only for climate resilience, but also for other good reasons, including competition, changes in how we grow and distribute food, and how we can bring people and diversified farms back into the equation. Too many people, both urban and rural, do not know what is really going on, or do not care, or feel powerless to do anything about it. When I bring up the subject to my rural, conventional farming friends, too many of them say the powers that be in agriculture and food production kept those possibilities from happening a long time ago.
Hmm.
Uh, so at the very, very end, I another key part of this book is looks at spirituality, and I say there has to be a new uh, look at the bonding of ecological justice, meaning God's creation through evolution, is
Hmm.
and the ecology of that, which has been allowed to evolve. There has to be ecological justice, and then there has to be social justice with the people that are using our creation to provide for our being able to live with farm food and agriculture and everything that we do. They should be seen as one new sense of spirituality instead of abusing creation and saying, just like this present administration is doing, is we got to go after all the resources we can get, whether it's minerals, whether it's oil, and at the same time deny that climate change is even this book tries to say very clearly that climate change is real and we better pay attention, or we're in an existential crisis. We're just putting off what's inevitable. That's that's kind of how the book ends. uh, I've
Very
said
good.
enough.
And I just want to remind people the best ways they can find the book and get the book. We put the link to Bloomsbury Press into the chat. That's one great way to see it. And if they run into you, Ron, you might have some books soon. It sounds like that maybe they can
Right.
they can talk to you as well.
I'll have the first books at tomorrow already at the annual Practical Farmers of Iowa conference in Des Moines. And so I'll be trying to peddle books, but there'll be some book signings, and there's going to be a bookstore there too from Des Moines.
Ah,
So there's yeah, and I'm really excited about it, and this is my first time here of talking about my book in a setting like this. So I hope there'll be lots more.
absolutely. I'm sure there will be. People will be looking for the book, and I'm really glad that we can be talking about today. And we'll look for you tomorrow at the Practical Farmers of Iowa annual meeting as well. Um, and just to remind people, this is Uh, this book has a lot of pieces to it. It's part personal journey, it's part history, and it's part about where we go as a society. What makes you most optimistic about where we can go, Ron?
Uh, I always say this, it's youth, for one thing, youth that care about where their comes from, all consumers that are care about where their food comes from, what's in it, how healthy it is, who's growing it. We just got to start. We got to start getting the right people elected to office that share the reality of how the world works and how, if we're going to get along with people in this world, we got to we should be leaders, not dragging our feet trying to live now back in the late 19th century with what's going on with exploitation of all our resources, like the railroads did back then, for instance.
Yeah. Well, Ron, we had a quick note asking about the great example of connecting farmers with good, healthy food to their local community. And your family
Right,
was
right.
profiled recently, right, in the Des Moines
Oh
Register
yeah.
about that.
I hope that this book will be available to students because it is an academic book. It's going to be available at institutions of higher learning, but it's not a hard book to read. It could be very. I think high school students should be reading this book. It's not hard to read at all, but
Yeah.
it really so that people understand where we were, how we got here, the how what has happened since, and how we can get out of this mess is the practical way of saying it. And it's that's what it is.
Well, that is exactly right, Ron. Thank you so much for sharing with us. We are honored to have you here today, and we are very
Oh,
excited to hear about the conversations that are going to be happening around the release of the book. So, thank you for all
well,
that you've done for
thank you.
us and coming and sharing with us in the Farmers Union.
I'm very honored to be a part of Farmers Union myself, and I hope to. I keep saying this. I hope to keep doing more with Farmers Union.
We love it, Ron. Thank you so much.
Thank, yeah, thank you.
Well, everyone, this has been the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn. It's our opportunity to get to share with one another about developments in family farming and thriving rural communities and sustainable agriculture and healthy landscapes. And it's our outreach effort. If you haven't had a chance to join the Farmers Union yet, please do so today. Thank you for being a member. Thank you for being a supporter. If you haven't had a chance to, please do so. It's only by working together can we bring this message forward and that we can demand real change among policy leaders and make real change in our communities. So again, thank you, Ron, for being here. We'll remind people the Iowa Farmers Union Day on the Hill is February 3rd. Sign up, look at the link in the chat and sign up. We're going to bring our message to the policy leaders in Des Moines on February 3rd. And if you're interested in coming to the National Farmers Union Convention, check out the link. It's it's going to be in New Orleans on March 7th through 9th. So everyone, thank you so much for being here. And Ron, a huge thank you again.
Thank you very much. It's been an honor. Thanks.
Thanks again, Ron. Thank you, Christina, for bringing us all together.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye, everybody.